Yeah, I welcome everyone once again to the second class of our 4 weeks training on content writing. Of course, I'm very sure most of us we've gained so much already, and I'm certain that this will be no different from the previous sections we've had, right? And of course, this is a 4 weeks training on step-by-step guide to content writing. And in as much as it's a step-by-step guide, we just gonna be touching basically the introductory part of most of the thing we'll be talking about, right? And as we all know, the classes has been divided into 4 weeks. The first week we spoke about introduction to content writing and different types of content. I remember we spoke about blog posts, we spoke about thought leadership, we spoke about listicles and several of them, right? And we also spoke about characteristics of a content writer, right? Of a good content writer, what a good content writer ought to and ought not to do. And we delve also into different strategies to write and to break procrastination, right? And I shared some interesting memes the last time, but today, as that we use as icebreakers. But today, I'm sorry, there are no memes yet. Today, we're gonna be doing serious business. So it's business majorly, right? And today, being week two, we're talking about content structure, types of content, crafting an headline, and topic research, right? And of course, week three, we'll be delving into introduction to search engine optimization, which I said we're just going to be talking basically about uh, the introductory aspect, how to write SEO-friendly content, and we're not going to be doing what was it? We're not going to be doing the technical part that has to do with drafting a site map and all of that for your website, right? So we're doing pure content, and we for creative writers, as I said the last time, we're probably just talking about technical writing. We are not doing creative writing. Yeah. So first thing first, introduction to content structure. What is a content structure? A content structure, as you all know, anything that has a structure has a form, and as such, it's meaningful, right? So the meaning in content structure is what make it structured. I don't know if you get that. So I have there that content structure is the meaningful use of HTML heading that divides your content into sections and subsections, right? Allowing for easy readability, more ranking opportunities. That is, it gives you a leverage to rank higher on the Google search engine and also overall readability. It makes your content really enjoyable to your audience. And of course, when we delve into SEO, I think that's when the whole idea of content structure would really make a whole lot of sense. But before then, I have some key points for you to note. Key point number one, headings, right? As we all know, I don't know if we all know anyway, but then I'm just going to tell you, HTML is the language through which, what's it called? Is a language through which the, well, what's it called? The computer or the website interprets your content. That is when you go to the source code of some of your content online, you're gonna see them written in some computer language and all of that. Those languages are called HTML, and it is also the full meaning is hypertext markup language, right? And some of the key points I have here is headings. Your headings rather are super important when you are talking about structuring your content, right? So your heading starts from your headline probably. That is your H1. Automatically, your CMS, that is your content management system, gives you that. Your headline is your H1. Your subheading to your headline. Let's say, for instance, you're writing about how to develop a website, right? So, how to develop your website is your H1, which is your title, right? Then when you after your introduction, when you want to introduce a new concept and you talk about what is a website, that should be an H2 because it's a category under your headline. But let's say you now want to talk about types of websites under what is a website, those should be in H3. So for every major category you start under your headline, they should be in H1. And for other categories that falls under your H that falls on, there should be, rather, for every category you start under your headline, there should be in H2, not H1, I beg your pardon. Why for every subcategory you start under your H2, there should be in H3. Don't worry, we're gonna have a more extensive look at that, right? So now let's discuss, okay, I already spoke about your subsection. Your subsections are either in H2 or in H3. Then also for readability, it's important that you structure your headline in bits. Serve your audience in bits. You don't wake up one morning and say you're gonna eat my breakfast, lunch, and dinner all at the same time. No, you take them in bits. So let's say, for instance, you want to tell me about how to build a website. You introduce me to why a website is important at all, right? And you want to tell me what a website is. You want to tell me the tools. So breaking it down into bits is what we that it's what's really a readability, right? And of course, each subheading shouldn't be more than 150 words. Your subheading shouldn't be more than 150 words. And what this does is it tells the website that, okay, yeah, I discussed this already in my subheading, and I'm going to discuss this again, and I'm going to discuss this again. So the more frequent, quote and unquote, frequent does not mean you should spam your content with your keyword or whatever. The more frequent the search engine sees your keyword, the more it tends to feel like, oh wow, this content is really making sense. It tells the writer tells us what a website is, went on to tell us types of website, also went on to tell us the importance of a website, tells us the best website to go, and shares other resources. So it's add this richness to your content. But in as much as you want to write something really lengthy, 3,000 words, make sure that each subcategories are no more than 150 words. So let's go into discussing subtopics. Your subtopic should identify a problem, right? So you already tell me that you want to teach me rather how to build a website. Your first subheading should probably tell me about, okay, this is why you need a website, right? You could start with such a hook, right? So maybe your subheading, instead of starting with the conventional way of, okay, what's a website? Why not say why a website is relevant for your small business, right? That's the first thing you really want to tell me about. So you're starting with a problem, then break each topic into subtopic. You don't really write prosaic form in, if you want to write SEO friendly content, don't make it prosaic. You have to cut it down in bits. I mentioned that already. Then it's advisable to discuss findings, right? So maybe you're writing about, what is it called, website, how to build a website. You want to tell me about the best practices of website development or the global standard of developing a website. That's why I have here, what's it called, discussing findings. And also you want to use statistics to tell me that, okay, today there are over 2 million websites or 1 point something billion websites on the internet. That's shocking. Wow, actually could be one of those. And you're telling me that, okay, the fact that you really joined today does not mean you're going to be the 1 billionth website, right, on the internet. You can actually improve your content as a lesson note to your reader. A teacher does not just come to the class and give you definition and list everything down. No, it's not a storybook, right? It's a class note you're writing. Think of it as a class note, right? And then you have to have sub topics, right? And also let your subheads reflect your content hierarchy. What does this mean? It means you have to take your reader on a journey. You start from the what's it called? I don't know if you all know this inverted pyramid. Inverted pyramid is a, what's it called? It's a pattern of writing and news writing, right? It's a journalistic form of writing. So you want to tell your readers the most important thing, then you go to the least important. Whichever form you want to choose, just make sure that your structure has an hierarchy, right? Then we go to your subheading should be descriptive, right? Make it catchy, make it as catchy as possible, right? They, what's it called? I saw some samples I would have loved to share with you all, but I kept it for, what's it called? For the SEO writing class. And I'm very sure you're going to like it. But just make sure that your sub headline hooks the reader. hooks the reader, draws the attention of the reader. Don't worry. When we get to different types of content structure, you get to understand why it is important that your subheading should hook your reader as much as your headline hooks your reader. Then question like, your subheading should also appear in form of question. It's advisable you make it in form of question. And yeah, also your subheading should focus on the keyword you're writing about. As a matter of fact, when you're trying to optimize your content, if you have an SEO plan on your website, it's going to tell you that your H2 and some of your H3 headlines are not, what's it called, does not contain the keyword you're writing about. So it's very important that when you're setting a keyword, your H2 and your H3 should reflect that, right? So let's say I'm writing about how to build your website, right? My keyword could be build build a website, or let's say I'm writing on and 6 tips for 6 video editing tools, right, to use in 2020. My keyword will be video editing, right? So that's the keyword I choose to use, and as such, my H2 and my H3, at least to a larger extent, should reflect video editing. So I should tell you, okay, 6 tools to use. Then I should tell you, okay, what is video editing? Remember the first one, I already tell you what is video editing. I tell you about video, what's it called? Why it is important to edit your video, right? Why video editing is important for your business. Then I make sure that I'm defining each of those subcategory and including my keyword in each of those, right? Then types of content pattern, right? At first I called it the content structure, but no, it's called content pattern in professional writing. First, we have the layer cake pattern, where a reader just comes to, okay, let me run through each of these patterns, then maybe we'll have an extensive discussion on that. Okay, we have the layer cake pattern, we have the spotted pattern, we have marking pattern, we have bypassing pattern, we have commitment pattern, we have list bypassing pattern, we have the zigzag pattern, and we have the lawnmower pattern, right? So first, we have the layer cake pattern. The layer cake pattern probably just says that, okay, you write, and what's it called? Readers that come to read your content. What pattern do they use to read your content, right? If you know this, it will help you to write more effectively. So let's talk about the layer cake pattern. Layer cake, as it goes, people really just go for the icing on the content you're writing about. So they read the first paragraph, they read the first line they read your subheading, they read other sub lines in your subheading, and it goes and hold. Just as the name implies, they read in layers. And let me just say this, they read the icing in your content, right? So let's think of your content as a cake to your readers. Of course, it really is, because they want to nourish their mind, right? So they read the icing and they let go of the cake, really. I don't think that's what you want your readers to do. You don't really want to leave them with the icing. You want to give them deep content, right? And that is why we have other types, right? We have people who read spotted pattern, right? Reading spotted pattern means people go for specific spots in your writing. I, for one, when I stumble on a random article on HBR, I'm looking for facts, I'm looking for backlinks to to journals, and I'm also looking for the bullet points. So let's say, for instance, for someone who is reading on how to build a website, nothing concerns them about, okay, what is a website, types of websites, how to rank. No, they just go straight to your subheading that talks about how to build a website. That is spotted pattern, right? So this is why it's very important to have subheadings in your content, right? So we have marking pattern. Marking pattern, I think that's typical of people who read books a whole lot, right? When you read a particular part and you tick it or you mark it, right? People also read blog posts that way. They have specific areas that they've marked out that they really want to read. Some people, when they open a blog post, what they just want to read is the introduction. They've marked that. And some people, what they just want to read, what concerns them really, is the statistics you're talking about. It's a bit different from spotted pattern, because people can spot different things in your content. But when it comes to marking, they mark a specific area and jump to another place to mark, right? Then we have bypassing. Bypassing comes, I know we all know the communication definition of bypassing, when there is, what's it called? When the receiver does not decodes the message as encoded by the sender, right? But in content writing, it's different. Bypassing probably talks, it's a pattern whereby your reader probably just what's it called? Misinterprets your content, right? That means your content is not adequately presented. Then we have list bypassing. People just really read the list you have to offer. Let's say you're talking about 6 tips for effective writing, and what they just do is, oh, they read all the 6 tips and they move on. Then we have zigzag. As the name implies, people read the what's it called? They read your introduction, then they go to what's it called? They read slantedly, then they go towards the end. That is your conclusion. That is why every part of your content is very important. You never know someone who is just in, you never know who, if your reader is probably just interested about your conclusion. And then they read your conclusion and they'll be like, wow, I must read this, right? So each of these pattern of content, each of these patterns through which readers read content really just talks about the fact that you should make each point or each areas or each segment of your content as important as the beginning, right? Because you really don't know which is going to hook your reader. Then we have the F pattern. I didn't include that. The F pattern, as the name implies, it's professionals believe it's bad for business, right? And how does the F pattern really, how do people read in the F pattern? They read the introduction, read your list, read what's it called, the middle of the content, and that was all, they move on. But the goal of understanding this content pattern is for you to know that each of your structure or each section, subsections of your structure rather, is super important. And you really want to get your reader glued to a specific pattern when reading your content. And what pattern is that? That's the commitment pattern. As you can see here, commitment pattern. That should be the goal, or what's it called? That should be the goal through which you're steering your reader to. Because really, the pattern of readership of an individual depends on how a content is structured. I'm very sure you agree with me on that. Okay, yeah. So please, if you have questions, you can drop them in the comment section. I will check the comment section from time to time. So now we go into crafting an headline. Headline is super important. Like I got speechless at some point, but you can imagine reading you can imagine seeing a link to a post without an headline. Who's even gonna read it? Nobody, right? So your headline is like a window into your content, right? So imagine yourself in a dark room, right? And there's no window. How are you gonna get light? No way, it doesn't work, right? So imagine you have a window in a room and you open it, light comes in, right? So your headline is like the window that attracts visitors to read your content, right? So picture it that way. And also it sells your content, and it sells your content really. And that does not mean you should be sensational in your headline. It just means that you should make sure that it summarizes what your content is all about. Don't worry, we're going to get to the importance of headline and how to craft headline, different forms and all of that. Okay, yeah. So crafting an headline, to craft an effective headline, first thing first, you must understand your audience intent, right? And that's the last tip I'm going to be leaving you with today. It's still in the last slide, but when we get there, we're going to delve extensively on that. Every content you see online is geared towards satisfying an intent, or what's it called? Satisfying the hunger, right, of someone who is actively searching. It will amaze you that when you go to check the internet life stats of today, you see that billions of people are online searching for things, right? And who never can tell, your content could just show up and one person reads it, passes it on, and all of that. So understanding audience intent. What do we mean by audience intent? When we get to the last slide, I'm going to tell you more on that. Okay, Also, when you're crafting your headline, don't just stop at one example. Craft several samples of your headline. So let's say you want to write tips for what's it called on choosing a CMS. That is a content management system. We have several CMS, by the way. We have WordPress, we have Drupal, we have Joomla, and several others. So you want to write about tips on choosing a CMS. So what you really want to know is, are people really searching for tips on how to choose a CMS? Or would people be more interested in how effective a CMS is? Or would people be more interested in the best CMS that suits their business, right? You just have to craft your headline around several, what's it called? Around several areas, having your audience intentions at heart, right? So also it's very important that you craft several headlines, then you choose the best from it. Okay, yeah. So as I said earlier, we will have to join the class again for the second section, but I'll tell you when to do that. But let's get to the rules of an headline. So we wrap it up, then we join again and we start from topic research. So your headline also should be straightforward. Straightforward, go straight to the point, don't parabolate, avoid superfluous word. Also, use numbers. It's okay to use statistics in your headline. You really want to tell people that, okay, this thing, you are not the only one. 40% of the world population own a website. And people are like, wow, 40% of the world population own a website. Why have I not gotten one for myself? Right? It's using statistics in your headline adds a formal factor to your content. FOMO is fear of missing out. People don't really want to miss out in your they don't want to miss out the value your content is offering, right? So it's very super important that you add data or statistics to your headline. Also, call to action, CTA. What's it called? What are you calling your audience into? Are you calling them to come to know about, come to solve, and are you calling them to buy? Are you calling them to know? Or are you calling them to verify something? It's very important that you know what your call to action really is. Then rules of an headline. I know a whole lot of us have issues crafting an headline, but these are pure rules. There are a whole lot of them, but I've really niche it down to, I think we have about 8 or 7 here already. Use active present tense. You shouldn't use past tense in your headline. Use present tense, and you don't just use present tense, it should be active, right? Use statistics. I mentioned that earlier. Experts recommend that your headline should be about 8 words. If it's 12, cut it down. Some people will recommend 10 though, but for me, I recommend 8 words because the fewer the words, the tighter or the more punchy the headline is, right? And of course, when you're optimizing your website, it will tell you if your headline is too long or too short. Yeah. Also, your headline should be specific. Don't write something really generic. Just go down to something that's super specific. Then avoid conjunction. Rather, use comma. Don't use and or no. Just use a comma to separate, right? Then make sure that your headline makes full sense. Something that people can see online and know that, yeah, this is what I'm going to read, right? So make sure it makes full sense and it entices the reader to come to read your content, right? Then ensure clarity. Your headline shouldn't be vague. It should be clear enough such that people with some content writers will say, write in such a way that you explain you write in such a way as though you expressing yourself to your younger ones at home, your siblings and all of that. So use simple grammar in your headline. Don't use all those grammar you get from your, what's it called, from your Macmillan dictionary or Oxford dictionary. Then think SEO. So when you're crafting an headline, think about the ranking or the rank that you feel your headline is going to have, right? So there was a time I wrote an article about NSAS. You can go check it out. Okay, maybe if time permits, I'm going to show you all. So I wrote an article about NSAS and I noticed, oh, a whole lot of people have written about NSAS, but nobody's writing about how brands are responding to the protest. So I took that upon myself and I wrote, and it ranks #1 on Google. So I thought, okay, SEO, there's a trend going on, but how do I key into it, right? And I thought of niching it down niching it down to how brands are responding to the protest. So think SEO when you're crafting. Don't write everything. And notice in writing for on how brands are responding, I was specific. I did not write on how people responded. No, nobody cares about how people responded. Anyway, people want to know how different sets of the society are responding to the protest as it affects their what's it called? As it affects their way of life. Then important of an headline should, or an headline hooks your reader. So hooks the reader. Headline hooks the reader. Headline summarizes the content, right? And also headline aids your SEO performance, right? And yeah, so we're gonna be talking about the second class when we rejoin the call, where we talk about topic research, how to search for a topic, how to different tools to use for topic research. We're going to talk about search intent, and we have the Q&A. I hope that's okay by us. Yeah. So thank you so much for being a part of the lesson 1. And let me just quickly have a recap. We started by talking about content structures. We talk about how it's super important to structure your content into headings and subsections. And why are you doing this? You're doing that to make sure that it's simple and what's it called? You're doing it for readability, really. So you're doing it for readability for your audience to get the point as fast as they can, right? And also you're doing it for you to rank well on Google search engine. Nobody wants to be on the second page. As a matter of fact, there's a cliche that the best place to hide a dead body is on the second page of Google. So your content is not dead, right? You really want to make sure that it gets to the front page. Also, we spoke about how to have how to craft subtopics, or how to structure your subtopics, discussing findings in each of these subtopics, defining its concept, evaluating rather each query, and also wrapping it up. We spoke extensively on that. And also we spoke about how to structure a content, breaking each topic into subtopics or subsections. Your subheading should reflect your content hierarchy. Then also your subheading should be descriptive. They should be question-like, and they should include focus keyword that you really want people to talk to, to look at for. Then we spoke about various content pattern, and I said that it's important to understand this content, to understand content pattern. Content pattern probably talks about how readers read your content, right? And it's important for you to understand it so you know how to structure your content and where to strategically hit your reader, right? And to make them read the whole of your content. And the goal of every writer really is to have their reader be committed to their content, which is the committed pattern. We spoke about F pattern, we spoke about spotted, mark, and all of that. Then we delve into crafting an headline. We spoke about why and what you should know before you craft an headline. You should know that your headline, you should know your audience intent rather. You should know that you should write several samples of your headline before you choose the best. You should identify your headline, should identify a problem, keep it straightforward, use numbers, probably statistics, right? And we spoke about rules of an headline, maximum of 7-8 words, should be specific, avoid conjunction, think SEO, ensure clarity. And we spoke about importance of an headline. It hooks the reader, summarizes the content, and for SEO performance, right? And yeah, that's all. So I'm just gonna end the call right now and hope you all join later. Yeah. So don't worry. The second section is gonna be brief, and we're gonna have Q&A. Feel free to ask questions. And there's still some points I didn't list here because probably this is just to introduce us to